Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today I am unboxing a new set of watercolors. We're also gonna swatch them out, review it, do some paintings, all that stuff. But of course, I record these unboxing and reviews over the course of a couple of weeks generally, or at least a week, so I can kind of go through and get all of the information figured out before I come in at the end and give you my final review. So of course you can skip ahead at any point, but this was kind of an impulse purchase. I saw on Amazon that this set of watercolors had dropped to about $13, and this has been selling, this set has been between $30 and $40, and for the set of 24 of Phoenix watercolors, the artist grade watercolors. I tried their artist grade pans and they were identical to Cotman watercolors by Winsor & Newton, so much that I'm pretty sure that they make the colors, like pigment numbers, everything identical. Feel, consistency, tone swatched out, identical. And our Ocean State job lot sells some Phoenix products, so they had a set of tubes there that was like either $5 or $10 for 24, and they were just horrible. So when these came out on Amazon, and I got a few reviews to request these, I was a little just gun shy because of how bad the tubes at Ocean State job lot were. Not that I was expecting much because they were so cheap, but these were kind of expensive, and I was like, I just spent, you know, I think I spent, I don't know, maybe 30, probably less than 30 on the set of 48 pans. And I'm like, oh, how different the tube's going to be. But when these went for $13, I'm like, I'm going to grab them. And I'm not sure what the price will be today, but I will link to them just so you can check it out. But then they had the set of 12, they had for like 20 something dollars. So this was 13 and the 12 set was like 20 something. And then I checked a couple days later, these were actually like 50 cents less, maybe even $1 less. So maybe I paid $13.99 and they went down to $12.99 for this set. And then the set of 12 was $6.09 or something crazy like that. So I was like, this is weird. I probably would have got the 12 set if that was down low, but I'm like, you know what? It's good to have a variety. So, so let's take a look at these. So I've also had a lot of requests to review the Marie's Masters watercolors, and I recently picked up 3 to review, and we're going to compare those. We're going to compare the Cotmans to these, and we're also going to compare another line of store brand watercolors that to me seemed identical to the Cotmans, and you know, we're going to see if they're all the same paint. So this comes in just a simple like plastic tray or a cardboard tray with plastic insert, and it has a just a cardboard with like a little window sleeve. There's not a lot of excess packaging, which I like, and there's not any deception. Like sometimes you buy a set of paints and it looks like you're getting way more than you are. I feel like this is very compact and very very accurate. So it's pretty simple, just Phoenix Arts Group. Phoenix is a company that private labels for other companies that want, like say I wanted to do a line of student watercolors, but I didn't want to invest R&D. I just wanted to have some paints made with my label on it. I could contact them and have them do that. They do that for different companies. So this is pretty simple. Let's see, what is the English? Highly pigmented with good transparency and diffusivity. Smart choice for amateurs and artists, inspiring you anywhere, anytime. These are called the Artist line. They are hopefully much nicer than the kind of student line they had before, or craft line or scholar line, whatever you want to call it. But I don't think they're going to compete with, like, you know, Daniel Smith or M. Graham or the Winsor & Newton Professional or anything. And at this price point, I really wouldn't expect them to. So let's open this up and see. I've got my scissors here. I'm trying not to use my fingernails to open everything because they've got kind of like snaggy feeling, and I don't want to, I don't know. I want to maybe try to grow them nice. I don't know. I've never been able to. I always trim them off because I can't stand them being long. All right, so let's take a look at the tubes here. We've got metal tubes, looks like aluminum. We have 8 mLs of paint. We've got a color number. This is cadmium orange hue, color number 190. On the back, we've got the CE, which is a European safety standard, conforms to ASTM D4236, which I believe is the non-toxic AP seal. We have a permanence rating of A, which is how Winsor & Newton does their permanence rating is A, AA, and then I think A is permanent light fast, AA is good light fastness, and then I think they have a AAA, or maybe even like I think they might even go further than that. Your pigment here is PY83 and PO43, 8 mLs or 0.27 US fluid ounces. Website is phoenix-arts.com, Phoenix Arts Group. Shanghai, no, Shuyang Phoenix Art Paints Company Limited. All right, these look pretty good. Caps are fairly easy to open, and we've got a fairly small net, great for filling up half pans. It acts like it kind of wants to splurp out a little bit on me. So maybe I won't just recap that right away, and I'll put some in. Let's just, you know what, I'm just going to put these in a palette in the order that they come. So that one is, I'm not going to put a ton in because I don't have a lid for this palette, so so I don't want to, like, you know, fill it up and have nothing to put over it. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. This will be the fifth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm just going to put a little bit in there so I can close it up again. Oh, come on, get back in there, you. There we go. All right. All right, no binder separation. We can go ahead and palette all these. But okay, so I was geeking out a little bit. I didn't take these out of the box till I was here with you right now. But I was peeking through the little window, and I said, there's something that seems familiar about these to some other paints I just bought. So I've got the Marie's Masters. Like I said, I only bought 3 because they're $2.50 each. They're a good price, but it's like, I really don't need any more student grade paints. So we've got Lemon Yellow, which is the color I have here. So let's compare. Lemon Yellow. Look at this. Color number 215. Can you see that? Is that going to focus? I don't know if that's going to focus on. Maybe if I put my hands like that. Color number 215. That's kind of interesting. 8 mLs. No, actually, this is 9 mLs, and this is 8 mLs. On the back, it says Marie's. It got the AP symbol. Oh my gosh, that's glittery. I can't really read it. Shanghai something. Marie's Painting Materials Co. Let's look. Pigment information, PY3. Pigment information here is PY175. So same color number, different pigment. That's okay. So maybe these aren't the same, but that was a little interesting. I'm going to go ahead and put some of that out. So not the same pigment number. So maybe there is a flaw in my reasoning. Oh shoot, got some extras there. Oh no, it's going back in. Squeeze the sides of the tube. You can usually get it to come back in, but no binder separation there. This, by the way, is what that yellow looks like. It looks awfully similar. So, I mean, it could be that they are the same pigments, but there was a misprint. I don't know. Let's see. What's a little bit? I usually don't put, I'm going to put just a smidgen of the white out. This is Chinese white. The pigment number is PW5. Okay. Permanence AA, so it's not the best. It's one step below, but what's white going to do? I mean, maybe turn yellow. PY5, that might be a zinc white. But Chinese white is generally more translucent. It's meant for mixing. Usually it's like PY4 or PY5. No binder separation. Though, why did I put so much out? Feeling, I'm making it rain here with the paint. I'm feeling splashy. I'm feeling rich. Feeling rich because it's cost me like $13. Here we have Cad Yellow Pale Hue. And this is number 211, and the pigment number is PY175 and PY65. Sorry for the water pump noise. I should probably just do this off camera. Why am I putting so much paint down? Oh my gosh. I'm going to have to put some press and seal over that or something. Okay. But you know what? I was noticing that the pigment numbers on these match the pigment numbers on the pan paints. I have the pan paints here. Is this lemon yellow? Actually, this lemon yellow might be different. Because this lemon yellow, no, that's PY175, PY175. I was looking at a bunch of colors at random on the Jerry's Artorama website of the Marie's Masters, and looking at my brochure of Phoenix pan paints, and I was seeing between the color names identical pigment matches. So I think there's something related here, and I think there might just be a misprint. Well, maybe not, because that said PY175 on that. Well, we'll have to see. We'll see. So like this color, this is PB29. This is ultramarine blue. We'll just compare these real quick. Color number 443. This is ultramarine blue. Color number 443. The pigment number, as expected, is PB29, just as that. Permanence rating A, which is lightfast. Lightfast number 1 under ASTM. And does this one have? This one has a 4-star rating. I think yeah, they do a weird star rating with the Maries. I'll do a review on those, but yeah, those colors, those color name number pigment codes were the same. I don't have crimson in the Phoenix color. I just have alizarin crimson, which is different. This is PR149, and I actually picked this red because I was curious about PY149, and I wasn't sure if I had that in any other brand. This is PR206 alizarin crimson, which is the same as a Marie's Masters pigment alizarin crimson. So I just had the Jerry site open, and I was like scrolling through and just looking for you know, similarities. So what I think I'll do is I will squirt out these paints. We'll do some swatching. We'll compare swatches. We'll see if it's all the same thing. And then I've actually got some other paints I want to compare, because these Premier paints that were by Nicole for AC Moore back in the day, these seem so similar to Cotman. I was like 100%, well, I was like 95% sure they were Cotman, but I couldn't find any other way to cross-reference it other than the shape of the tubes and the size of the tubes and the colors and the way they dried down and all that stuff. So the consistencies of these are looking like Cotman 2 paints, but I'm going to finish squirting these out. Maybe we'll swatch it together. Maybe I'll do it on my own. I'm not sure. But we'll resume. We'll resume. Probably I'll do this off camera because I've swatched Phoenix colors before, and I think it's going to be about the same. Okay, I know the water pump's still going, and that's annoying, so I apologize. But so I'm looking at this color, Verdi Blue. It's PB28. It's a cobalt blue. It doesn't, and look, permanence NA, whenever a color comes out by Phoenix, I've noticed, and there's not a comparable Cotman color, there's no light fastness rating. So I think they're just using the light fastness ratings they get from Winsor & Newton. Winsor & Newton discontinued their official, like their real cadmiums and cobalts like a few years ago. It was about the time they, I think it was about the time they moved their operations to China. So I'm wondering if this is going to be like the classic Cotman paints, man. They were a touch better, I've got to say, and especially the genuine ones. But this is called Verdi Blue, probably because there's a cobalt blue in the Cotman line, and they don't want to have confusion. But I thought that was worth mentioning. I'm kind of excited about that. So far, I'm looking at this. No binder separation. Everything is looking good. I'm thinking I've got a good buy here, and hopefully the price stays good so other people can get a good buy. Because, you know, I still teach. I teach my library classes with Cotman, and if you get the right colors, Cotman is decent. A lot of times, though, you buy a set and it's like a small set, and it's like, what were they thinking when they put those colors together? Because they picked like the weakest, unusefulest, least useful colors. The old Sketcher box was great colors. That's what I teach with in my my library classes, which I haven't done since COVID, but great color selection. But then they've been coming out, and I don't know if they still have a great color selection on the Sketcher box, but like I bought the field box, and the colors they chose were terrible. And it's like, if you're out in the field, these are like the least, not all the least useful colors, but they are definitely not what I would pick for a field box where you're going out to paint. You're going to have the strong colors in there if you're only going to have 12. So anyway, that's neither here nor there, but I just thought that was exciting, and I just wanted to say it before I forget it, because I'm like, oh my gosh, it's cobalt blue, it's real cobalt, it's exciting. Okay, but what's not exciting is now we come to cobalt blue hue, and it is ultramarine blue plus white. PB29 plus white. We could have mixed that. You got cobalt right there. What are you doing? Except just trying to, you know, not be too competitive with Cotman. I don't know, but that's weird. That's weird. It is a total different color than that, so I'm gonna have to look at my classic. I got my classic Winsor & Newton palette here with genuine cobalts. Let's see what that cobalt looks like. That cobalt is this right here. Oops. I love it that they print the names on the. It doesn't look like either of them really. Of course, it's not dried down. But yeah, it's going to be fun to geek out and kind of compare these. Look at this palette. I love it. I actually found some tubes of classic Cotman paint that I'm gonna add. The portable painter pans actually will fit. They don't fit in the Sketcher box, so don't get excited. But they do fit in the studio palette. So I'm going to put some of those classic colors that I have that I don't have in this palette in there, because I have nostalgia about this palette. I've refilled some of the colors probably with non-Cotman paints. I think I used Da Vinci and M. Graham on some of those, so it's not totally, you know, accurate, but But that's a good thing about student paints. You use up a color, you see what color you actually use, then you go buy a tube of paint from a better brand or from maybe from the higher range. That way you're only spending a lot of money. You're only spending the big bucks on the colors you actually use. So anyway, I digress. I'm going to keep squirting out paint, but if something interesting happens, I'll let you know. Hello, it is the next morning, and I let these kind of dry down overnight, and then what I did was I went and put a stronger glaze. I swatched these all out before I left for the evening. Then I went and did a stronger glaze on each of these, and then I also swatched out the Cotman equivalent on each of these, and man, if there's a Cotman equivalent, they're identical. Now, Phoenix does have more colors than Cotman. I'm like 99.9% sure they make the Cotman paints, and also I'm a real 99.9% sure they also make the Marie's Masters and also these Nicole private labeled ones that used to be sold at AC Moore. There's just too much similarities to how they dry down. These I was pretty sure these were Cotman equivalent when I first got them, but they were made in China, and back then I didn't know about Winsor & Newton moving their factory to China or having their Cotman stuff made in China. And I didn't have Pigment information, so I couldn't be sure, just going by my hunch and how they looked and felt and reacted. But then comparing them against these, they all seem to be the same paints. It seems to be the same whether you're getting the Phoenix pans and the Phoenix tubes. They seem to be the same, but I will compare swatches for you. But right here on this paper, I went through and I did a Cotman pan swatch because I don't have any of the new Cotman tubes. All my tubes are older. I only have a few. So I swatched out the like a strip of the Phoenix tube. Then I did the equivalent Cotman. That was a Marie's Masters, same color number, but a different pigment. I actually think I prefer Marie's Masters, a PY3 there. Then we've got Cad Yellow Pale Hue here. There's a Cotman equivalent. They look the same to me. Cad Yellow Hue, Cotman, and that's the Phoenix tube. That's a Cotman pan, Phoenix tube, looks the same. By the way, the Phoenix pans and Cotman pans were identical, and I can compare those swatches in a minute for you. The Cotman Phoenix. This one is my Marie's Masters Crimson. That I don't have exactly the same. I like that color though. This is PR 149, I think. Ooh, where'd we go? Where'd our pigment information go? Oh, PR 149, yeah, right on the front. I like this color, and I wasn't that familiar with that color. This is in the Cad Red Hue, but it's also got PR 255, which makes it a little bit orangier. It looked closer to the Scarlet Lake, which they're using a PR3, which is not a lightfast color. So I probably, if you want to hang something up, I would go with the Cad Red Hue for my warm red, and I would use the Crimson for my cool red. And I see the PR3, a lot of brands don't use it anymore, but it was pretty, just like the old original Alizarin Crimson, PR83, that was everywhere. But a lot of companies have stopped using that because there are good substitutions now that give you the same hue without giving you a fugitive color. Then we have the Permanent Rose. There's the Cotman version. That's the Nicole version from AC Moore. And there, of course, is the Phoenix version. They look pretty indistinguishable. Actually, the AC Moore one almost looks a little bit cleaner. But that was also 5-6 years ago when I got that. So, I mean, formulations can change a little bit over the course of time. Dioxazine Violet. That was a Cotman version, but I had to scrub out because I put down the wrong purple. Because I had two in my palette. I couldn't tell which was which. I had to take them out and look at the side of the pan. So I scrubbed it out, then I put dioxazine, which made it look really darker. So then I re-swatched that there. Seems to be identical. Pigment numbers are all identical. This Verdi Blue, that's using PB28, which is cobalt blue. This definitely has some white in it. Now, if a paint company is using PW4, which is like a chalk extender, they don't have to disclose it as a pigment. It's fairly translucent. It's also sometimes sold as Chinese white, but it's a very translucent kind of like mixing white. But companies don't have to say if they're using it, but you can see on the black strip, well, hopefully it shows up on camera. You see that kind of like haze, that white chalky haze. That's definitely, I don't want to say enhanced because it's not enhancing it at all. There's a lot of chalk in that one. And that's kind of a bummer because PB28 is such a beautifully granulating, pretty cobalt blue that why would you do that and then put a cobalt blue hue? You know, just use the cobalt. But it's a cost thing, I'm sure. They just want to cut costs. Then we've got ultramarine, no qualms there. I was thinking it looked a little weak. I swatched out the Murray's Masters, which I really like. It's almost like I looked again to see if it was ultramarine blue deep, because that's what it looked like. That does seem to be a little bit stronger. That's the Phoenix. I swatched it out again because I wasn't trusting that. That did look a lot like the Cotman. I swatched it again, just kind of full strength. It did look a little bit more like the Masters. So there may be a little bit of my just swatching inconsistencies. There's that color again. I swatched it there. This, I feel like this has a little bit less gum arabic. It seems a little bit less shiny. That seems to have a little bit of shine at that consistency, whereas the Murray's Masters doesn't. Maybe they're making them a little bit different. See, this is also all allegedly. Like, they could be making this paint from Murray's Masters and using a little bit less filler, using a little bit less binder, using a little bit more pigment. And I mean, the tube size is different. These are 1 ml larger as well. So when I got these on sale for $2.50 or $2.49 on Jerry's Artorama, I think I got a good deal. But I still only bought 3 tubes because I'm like, I don't know. I just don't want another Cotman. Nothing against Cotman paints. I just didn't need another bunch of them. Then we're going through here. We've got Cobalt Blue. There's a Cotman version. There's the Phoenix version. Looks the same to me. Cerulean Blue, which is PB15, which I'm not sure what they're doing with this, because it must be one of the, they must not, because they also call the phthalo blue PB15, which it is, but there's several different versions of that, where you see like PB15:3, PB15:1, PB15:6. So they shift. Some are more green, leaning more towards turquoise. Some are more red, leaning more like an ultramarine, but not really that red. So, I mean, they're using 2 different ones. This one is so much weaker, though, and it doesn't look like cerulean blue to me. They used to do a cerulean in their old set that was much more, it looked much more, well, maybe it didn't. I'm thinking it was much more opaque, but maybe I'm just misremembering. That could be. That's what it looks like right there. Let's swatch that, actually. Let's do a little quick swatch of that. Because I'm thinking that back in the day, they might have actually used PB36, like a traditional cerulean. Yeah, see, that looks different to me. And that's a little bit more, has a little more body to it. I think I think which colors that have the cobalt base, PB36 being one of them. Sometimes it's called cobalt cerulean. It'll have a little granulation. Like, that actually is a pretty close approximation of the color, but I don't think it's the same as the vintage Cotman. Vintage Cotman was better because they used the thing. Well, in my opinion, it's better. I've noticed this trend in student grade paints, which I think it's partially budget. The reason is partially to cut costs, but I think it's also partially from students' preferences. The student grade paints, when you bought them from like a major like paint company like Winsor & Newton, they were just like less pigmented versions and sometimes less toxic. But Cotman had cadmiums, Cotman had cobalts. They used just less pigment, and the tubes were a little bit smaller, just a way to get a student going without having to spend a ton of money. But I have a feeling they made more money on the artist grade, because I mean, it didn't seem like there was that much less. It wasn't that drastic. It was, you could tell a difference, but it wasn't a huge difference. And the different paints still had their personalities. So your ultramarine blue granulated pretty well. Your cadmium colors were a little more opaque. Your phthalo colors were really transparent. So you had these varieties of working properties in the paints, which I loved. So now what I've noticed in paints is that their student lines are much more homogeneous. So everything's going to have the same level of transparency, the same level of opacity. Usually they'd have it all transparent or all be slightly opaque, or, you know, they just, and the flow is all the same. And generally, no, some colors flow more, some colors flow less. That's the personality of the paint. That's what I love about watercolor. But I've noticed a lot of companies have really tried to make all of their student grade paints react the same, which really doesn't prepare somebody who's using student grade paints to upgrade to artist grade paints, because they're not going to be ready for those different characters of each of the colors. But anyways, that's a little side note. So I think the Cotman paints used to be better. I actually found a few vintage ones in my stash. I'm going to put in my my full pan palette over there, because I just saw that my I think I told you that at the beginning of the video, that these slim pans from Portable Painter fit the big palettes. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. As we're going through, so this phthalo green, PG36, that's the Nicole brand, that's the Cotman, this is the Phoenix. They all look pretty indistinguishable. And then they give you Emerald Green, which is a mix of PG7 and PY75. And I don't know why they do that. They could just do PG7. It's not an expensive pigment. And you could always warm it up more if you want to add some of the PY75 right there. You could do that. But why would you take, so PG36 is a green leading phthalo green. PG7 is a more blue leaning phthalo green. So they're both clean, bright, transparent, great for mixing. Why would you add PY175 to that? You could have just PG7, and which is what they call Viridian hue. They could just nix that from their collection, as far as I'm concerned. Just give me the Viridian hue, or you know, any PG7, just straight PG7, and you've just got so much more mixing capabilities. These two are so similar, it's kind of a waste. And this Hooker's Green Dark, it's a shame they put this in here versus like a Sap Green or an Olive Green, which is much more lively and would be much more straight from the tube, more convenient for a beginner to use. I can show you Sap Green really quickly. I have all my swatches. I have all my swatches here from the Cotman and Phoenix range of the pan paints. I have a huge swatch on. It's actually kind of chilly today. It's been cold and rainy the last couple days, but let me just show you. I can show you on the Zen Art was another one that's the same as the Zen Art artist series is the same as the Cotman. So like that olive green is pretty lively. There's Sap Green. I would think going with something like that, the Sap Green. It's just, I think that's what they're, yeah, Sap Green. It would be ready to go for a lot of landscape applications. You could tint it if you wanted to. It's a mix of, oh gosh, I can't read those tiny things, but I think it's got PR101, it's got PG36, and a yellow in there. I can't read the tiny writing, but I mean, that's so much more attractive to me than that color, which is just so dead. It almost looks like it has black in it. I can't believe it doesn't have black in it for how dull it is. But in any event, I would just mix my greens. But I feel like that's just kind of a waste of an opportunity, because those other pigments aren't that expensive. You could have given a much better color without increasing the cost of this set for a manufacturer's perspective. I'm not a manufacturer, so I probably shouldn't be talking about a manufacturer's perspective, but anyway. Then we got yellow ochre, PY42, synthetic yellow ochre, it's fine. If you prefer a more transparent color, you might prefer raw sienna, which is a little bit more transparent. PR101 is burnt sienna. That's another giveaway. I know it's, well, I suspect it's a Winsor & Newton dupe, because Winsor & Newton and their Cotman range and the Phoenix and all those similar paints use PR101 as a burnt sienna instead of PBR7. But they do have a burnt umber that's PBR7 with PY42. I don't know why they add the PY42, but nevertheless, it's a pretty color and it doesn't bother me. Indian red, it's a very rich, opaque reddish brown. It's also PR101. They could take the same pigment and heat it more or grind it more, do different things to it in the lab and create a different color. So that's why you get some PR101s like this is so transparent. That's very transparent for a PR101. I like it. But you know, that same pigment will make that. But also they source the different pigments from different places. So Indian red refers to finding the pigments in India. English red, finding the pigments in England. It depends on also where they're mined. I guess they must be chemically similar enough to have the same pigment number. Then we have Payne's Gray, which is a mix of PBK7, PB29, PB15. There's the Cotman version, pan. There's our Phoenix version, and I re-swatched it too, so I could have it right next, because that looked really black. But anyway, and it's got some pretty granulation because of the ultramarine blue. And then we've just got a lamp black, which is just a super neutral to cool leaning dark black. Just like if you want super black, that's gonna be it, which I could see could be useful for some painters that want to maybe outline things. Maybe they have a more illustrative style. The white, unless you're mixing to make pastels and you want to just thin down the color without making it too chalky, you want to keep the viscosity the same but have a really light color, that's useful for that, but that's about it. It's not light enough for highlights, and it almost seems to, as I've painted it out, it seems to have a little bit of a yellowish undertone. I misspoke when I said that A was lightfast 1 and AA was lightfast 2. It's the opposite. AA is lightfast 1, which means like ASTM 1, A is lightfast 2. So like lightfast 1 would be 50 to 100 years, lightfast 2 would be 50 plus years, lightfast 3 would be 25 to 50, I believe, somewhere in that ballpark. But these are all lightfast 1 or 2 paints, and 15 of them are single pigments. Although I have a little bit of, I'm not so sure about, hey, looking at that, that's drying, and the drying is really looking like that. So I might have just completely been off base there, because I'm looking at that drying, and those cerulean blues are, that vintage cerulean blue and the new one is indistinguishable. So forget what I said about that. I guess it probably was the same before, because they're drying out identical. But anyway, that clearly has some PW4 in there, just because of the haze I can see. So that's not a really great single pigment color. It's not like an intense cobalt blue, and that's a fugitive single pigment, and that's white, and that's black, and you may not be even using those. So, but for what I paid for the set, I have no complaints. I've got to be honest, I have no complaints for what I paid for the set. Because even if I was going to go the route of the Marie Masters, and I got these on sale, and they were $250, I think they're up to $350 now. And if you buy them on Amazon, they're quite a bit more. I would only be able to get, for like $13, I'd only be able to get 5 colors. So, you know, sorry, something like this, it's a good base. It's a good base set, and then you can always go in and buy individual tubes of the Marie's Masters or Cotman, because I think Cotman probably runs about that on like Blick or Jerry's. So I think they're all priced about the same. It's not like you're getting a steal of a deal unless you get a big set, because like the set of, I might even have it on my computer here. So if I go over to Jerry's Artorama, they have their tubes list price for $10, and they have their regular price $5 and their sale price $3.49. But they do sometimes have super sales where they're $2.50. All right, so their set prices, their set of 24 9ml tubes is $45 on sale. They have list $180, which is total BS. Their regular price is $80. Their sale price is $64.99, and their super sale is $45. So versus the $13 I paid for this. They do have different colors in their set, so you know that might be why. But they have these all priced the same, I think. They have 55 colors, and I'm just scrolling through to see if I see any that are priced a little bit higher. I'm only seeing them, they're all priced the same. So yeah, you might want to pick and choose. Now there are some really nice colors here. I love that permanent rose. I like the dioxazine violet. I like the ultramarine. I like the cerulean blue hue and the phthalo blue. I like the alizarin crimson, the cad red hue. I like the lemon yellow and the cad yellow hue. There's good colors here for sure. So let's do a little color wheel and see how these colors mix, see what kind of variety we can get. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. And let's see, I'm just, let me go, well, I'll just use this little flat, now I want to use a round brush. Use one of my new brushes. Yeah. I'll use the synthetic though. Well, they're all synthetic, but I'll use the Taklon. All right, I'm going to do a split primary, so I'm going to do, this is my cool yellow. I like to put my yellows over here. I'll do my cool yellow here. I'm not sure what this paper is. I thought it was maybe hot press watercolor paper, but I think it might actually be Bristol. I'll just bring that over like that. I'm going to do my warm yellow. I'll do cad yellow hue. Hope this paper holds up. For my warm red, I'm going to do cad red hue, which is this one right here. Mix it in. Clean off the brush because the red is so strong. You get a really pretty orange. Now I will use alizarin crimson, and this is a quite cool alizarin crimson. It's a hue, which is a good thing actually, because your regular alizarin crimson is pretty fugitive. And then I'm going to do ultramarine blue for my warm, which is right here. Probably the color I use the most. So I love to try new ultramarine blues because I use them more than anything else, so it's like I know it's going to get used. Some pretty violets there. And then we'll do phthalo blue. And one of the reasons I thought the Nicole paints might be Cotman is because they called their phthalo blue intense blue, and that's a proprietary name of the Winsor Newton uses intense blue as a name. I'm going to add a little more yellow in there because that blue is so strong. So that would be lemon yellow. And there we go, we got a really nice color wheel. Let me scoot that up a little bit. Now if we take those colors and we can mix them in the center, we should be able to get a really nice neutral. I think I'll probably just go ahead and grab some more, just so I can not mess up my color wheel. Let's get a little bit of that warm yellow, cool yellow. Mix it together once I get them all down there. Ultramarine, crimson. I'll probably have to adjust it a little bit to get a good mix. Cad red, and we also need our phthalo blue. All right, just mix all these together. We should end up with a brown or a gray. It's a little too green, so I'm going to add some more red. And get a nice brown in the middle. So yeah, they seem to mix all right. We could do a little burnt umber and ultramarine and see how that does. We'll wet an area here. Mix it on the palette. Clean up a little space here. A little burnt umber. There's probably even more paints that are made by Phoenix. It's fun. I like discovering the similar ones, especially if I can find them on a good deal, so I'm not spending a lot of money. I think it's fun to be able to discover that, and then I can help people save some money, so they don't buy the same thing twice. Or if they want that and they see, oh, this is a really good deal, I need to replenish some colors, they can grab it. Now all the colors, I think it was kind of a fluke that some of the colors that I got from Marie's Masters, they matched the color numbers of the Marie's. The Marie's in the Phoenix match, but I don't think that all of them do. I think I looked a while ago because I was wondering if they were the same. But there wasn't enough consistent matches, but I think that there's just too many similarities. Even though the way the tubes look, like this is let's look at these three tubes. They just look very similar to me. Maybe I'm just looking for stuff, but, and then let's see, it's Cotman. This is an older Cotman, but just the way the tubes look so similar. All made in China. Well, this one was a France-made Winsor Newton one, because I don't have any of the new tubes, but yeah, I just think the similarities are just too similar. They're too similar. But it's kind of fun. It's fun to do these tests. Now let's compare swatches. We can let that dry, but you can see we've got some really good mixes. I don't think if you got this set and I think it would be worth it just to get it for the split primary colors, the yellow ochre, the burnt umber, the single pigment phthalo green. Limit yourself to those. I think you could really get started well on watercolor with that. They dry down really well. I didn't have any cracking. I only dried it down last night, but they actually dry down fairly quickly, which is nice. But I've never had problems reactivating. Like these are the Marie's Masters. I squeezed those out last weekend, no cracking. I never had a problem drying down Cotman paint. Sometimes I just get a little bit of cracking, but it was never a big deal. And I've taught with Cotman for years, so I also have a really nostalgic feeling of goodness towards that brand. Even though, I don't think they're as good as they used to be, but I still don't think they're bad, especially their equivalents that you can get cheaper. All right, so these are the Phoenix tubes. Now let's look at the Phoenix pans, because I know you might be curious. I got the set of 48. The set of 12, instead of like having that phthalo blue, it had cerulean, and instead of it had some weird picks that made it not very useful. The 48 set was better because then you got all the colors. So it almost seemed like this set was better, but really, I mean, the paint's the same. It's just you had more colors and more of the useful colors. And there are some really beautiful ones there. And I would say the colors are the same. It doesn't matter. Get what you like. If you like tubes, get tubes. So is that that's Scarlet Lake there. That's Cad Red Hue there. Ooh, that's a pretty one. That's Cad Red Deep Hue. That's a really pretty one. Crimson. So, it doesn't really matter. I mean, some people will say that pans are better than tubes or tubes are better than pans. It doesn't matter. It really goes by the brand. This is that Verdi blue though, dried down in a pan. That does seem stronger and nicer. So maybe it's because I was using that from wet, and if I let it dry out completely and went back, I would get a result more than like that, because that did seem quite a bit stronger than the other. And that, I mean, that could be. I always, because these haven't dried rock hard, I always have better luck from dried paint personally, but yeah, I've got the same colors. There's some really nice ones in there because there's extra. They have all the colors, and there's 8 more than what you would find in the Cotman range. And I don't know how many they do in all, but I know there's 55 colors in the Marie's Masters range. So, you definitely can customize your palette and get exactly what you want. There's Indian Red, there's a Burnt Sienna. They have a lot more earth tone options. I think the Van Dyke Brown might be... no, their Van Dyke Brown is a mixture of PBR7 and PR101, so it's a mixture of the burnt umber and burnt sienna, essentially. The Payne's Gray. This is that's the same paper. Looks a little bit different there. I wonder if they... No, that's indigo. My apologies, that's indigo. This is Payne's Gray. So yeah, I mean, if you like the tubes, get the tubes. If you like the pans, get the pans. I think it depends on what you're going to pay. When I bought the pan set, it was like Prime Day last year. It was a great deal. I think it was under $30. And this set has been going for more like $30, but of 24, but now it's, it was just at 13. I don't know if it's going to stay that, but yeah, I mean, if you see it for that price, I think it's worth it. If you're going to be paying more like 30, I would really recommend the pans, because you get a greater variety of color. You already have a palette, and I don't see any difference as far as quality between the pans and the tubes. Now let's look at the, this is what the set of 12 half pans is right here, actually. So, you can see if you would like it or not. Their cool red, you'd be using the permanent rose, and your warm, you'd be using the Cad Red Hue. They have that scarlet there, which is a fugitive color. You do have a warm and a cool, warm and a cool yellow. You've got a yellow ochre, which is nice. You've got burnt umber, which is good. Dioxazine violet. Honestly, if they did a sap green instead of that, if they did a phthalo blue instead of that, and maybe a crimson instead of that, I think that'd be a really awesome palette. But just not having a strong, cool blue really was a no-go for me. I need that color to make so many other colors. So, but other than that, I mean, it isn't terrible, but man, I think that blue really made the set not very useful to me. That just really kind of bummed me out. But that's what it looks like if you want to just try a smaller set and see, because sometimes that's a pretty good price. That's usually around $16. $16, but man, a phthalo blue would have been so much better, and a sap green instead of that would have been so much better, because that Hooker's Green Dark is just kind of a bummer. It looks like there must be black in it. It reminds me of Sennelier's Forest Green, which I hate that color. It's just so dull, and it seems like such a waste of space in a palette. But they're olive green, like Sennelier's olive green is so gorgeous. It's like, more of that, please. But we're all different. We all like different things, so I guess I shouldn't speak for for everybody there. Now this is the Premier, which AC Moore went out of business. I don't think this paint is being made anymore. It was by Nicole, was the parent company. I know Michaels bought out the Nicole. I think they did. I think they bought out Nicole and Doris and all of those subsidiaries. But I haven't seen this paint anywhere. But it's a good paint, and it's really a shame. And I think this used to sell for, I think it sold for $5 a tube, but it was always on sale for $10. So about $2.50 a tube, same as our Murray's Masters. So they're all falling in the same price. But look, Dioxazine Violet, Permanent Rose, Prussian Blue, Permanent Rose. Look how good the Permanent Rose mixes, and that's the same color you're getting here. I don't know, maybe that's a smidgen cleaner. That's a nice color. I gotta put that in the palette somewhere. I just have it in that tube. But I mean, look at these mixes from that, and I didn't even have an ultramarine in this set, and I was still getting all these really rich mixes. That was really kind of a steal, but I think it's the same paint. And if you get the right colors, and I think that's where people really start crapping on Cotman, and I've crapped on Cotman before too, like been disappointed in, usually I've been disappointed in another Cotman equivalent set that doesn't have the stronger tones in it. If you get the basic colors and the stronger tones, you're going to enjoy Cotman watercolors. But if you get stuff like their cerulean blue hue, you're going to be disappointed. If you get, you know, some of their greens, you're going to be disappointed. So it's just such a, it's kind of fickle, even though, and it's because they went for that uniform consistency among all colors. And I think that's where they start using a little more, too much filler and too much binder in some of the colors, and it just weakened the pigment out too much. But that's just my opinion. I think that if you get the right colors, you're not going to be sad. If you don't overpay, you're not going to be sad. I don't know. Then again, also my opinions can fluctuate a little bit. Now, where is my Winsor & Newton? I have a big Winsor & Newton Cotman swatch. Where did it go? Right here. And I keep all these swatches folded together because I think they're the same paint. And then this is the set of 40, which is the full set of non-metallic Winsor & Newton Cotman. They just added some metallics, like 8 metallics. Honestly, I've seen the video. They don't look that impressive. I think there's much better metallic options on the market. But there's our lemon. There's our cadmium yellow. No, there's our cad yellow pale. There's our cadmium yellow. There's our cadmium orange. Some of these colors are not in Cotman because Cotman doesn't do the Scarlet Lake because it's fugitive, I think. The Verdant Blue, they don't do that because it's kind of weak and depressing. So Cotman has a pretty stable arrangement of colors that I believe Phoenix now makes, but Phoenix makes that paint for other companies where they will use different pigments that are not ASTM rated to meet the needs of these other companies or the desires that they want. I kind of wonder, because all these decent, cheap Chinese paints started to come out when Winsor & Newton moved their facilities to China, so I kind of wonder if there was some information that got shared around, or maybe they just start to learn what the American market wants and that's what they went for. But alizarin crimson, then we've got permanent rose right there. That actually looks a little bit different, but I don't have a glaze of that, so it does kind of look like the more washy version. I didn't do glazes back then. That's pretty. Rose Madder is a nice color. Then there's actually a couple really pretty purples here. Purple Lake, which is unique. It's PV19. And then they got Mauve, which is a mix of PR 122 and PV 23. And then there's just a straight PV 23 Dioxazine Violet. They do pretty purples. And purples are such a strong color that it's almost kind of nice to have the student grade version because it doesn't overtake everything. So that's something to think about, something to consider. Then we've got ultramarine blue, and then a cobalt blue hue, a cerulean blue hue, turquoise. The turquoise is it's almost like the same pigment as cerulean blue hue, but it's more vibrant. Actually, it says PB15 and PG7, so I guess it does have something else in it, but for some reason I decided to do glazes on these, probably because I was trying to compare it to something else. But yeah, I mean, essentially colors are the same to my eye, to my feel, to seeing them dry out, and to seeing them, how they come in the pans, how the pans are put together. The pans are like this exact same shape, the tapered Winsor Newton type pans, that's what Phoenix uses. So yeah, I think those are all the same paint. I also think the Maya Himi Rhombus, like those diamond shaped pans, are the same. So yeah, I think it's good to know this stuff, because then you can know what you're buying. So what I'll probably do is a painting with these paints, and I'll come back and share those. But yeah, it's pretty much the same as the Phoenix pan paint reviews, I guess. But we'll be back with that, and then we will say farewell. So brief aside, I was looking and I just spotted this swatch, and this is the Premier Paints, and I had compared it back to the Cotman way back then, but I didn't have enough of the same colors to be definitive in my research. But I also compared them to Royal and Langnickel tube colors, so I might need to get those out and see how those rate. I never really suspected that Royal and Langnickel were made by the same company that does Cotman, but now I think I might need to take another look at those. And I do have a set in a drawer because I actually kind of like them, and I had done some work for Royal and Langnickel, and I just kept those on hand in case they needed some more work from me. So I think I'm going to check that out too before we're done. All right, I'm curious. I found my set of Winsor Newton, oh gosh, Royal and Langnickel paints, and I'm going to try a few of these and see. Now these are a different tube altogether. They have the little piercing thing in there, but they are made in China. I'm going to take some of the colors and just see if they match anything that we've been doing with the any of these Phoenix watercolor tubes. So Cerulean Blue is one they have, so we'll try this. I don't know. It doesn't look the same already. I can tell that doesn't look. That looks more thick, more opaque. But let's just see. I want to go back to that flat brush I was using because yeah, that does not look the same to me. I'm just going to do a quick little. Yeah, I would say no, that's not the same. No, it's way more green, it's way more chalky. Let's try ultramarine. Because I mean, these aren't bad. These are, I will use these in like a class. I think that, oh, that one I've got a little binder separation. I think these are pretty good for the price. They're very cheap, but much cheaper than the Phoenix. And I've used them a lot in kids' classes, and I don't dry them in palettes. Usually, I usually just squirt out a little bit in a palette. And I think if I recall correctly, they would crack. Colors, that color's about the same, is pretty close. It's pretty close in consistency too. Could be the ultramarine's just kind of hard to mess up. Let's see, we've got a violet. Let's try the violet. Little binder separation happening on this one as well. I've had this for a while. Last time I used it was at the beginning of the pandemic, I think. Actually, it was before the pandemic because I'd been hired to do some videos for their trade show booth, and I got the job done. I got paid, and then everything shut down. So I don't think they got to go to their trade show. I don't know. That one I'm not so sure. I don't think these are the same paint. It's fun to do this though. It's fun to experiment. But I do think that these are good. These are pretty good paints for the money too. But I don't think they're Phoenix made. I don't know who makes these. I mean, Royal and Langnickel. I mean, all these companies that have affordable sets, they're having them made. That's a pretty color. They're having them made by some factory in China. Yeah, not the same color. Pretty though. Pretty color. Yeah, these aren't the same. All right, I just had to check because I was like, well, you know, I don't like to leave a stone unturned, you know. So with that, I will, I'll go do my painting, and there'll probably be a video of that already up on YouTube by now because I tend to post the tutorials before I post the reviews. But when we come back, you'll get to see that. It's time for the wrap-up, the final assessment of these paints now that I've used them for a couple of paintings and I've swatched them out and I've compared them to other similar paints that I have. The color, pigment name swatches match the Phoenix pan paints identically. The pigment strength from dried down paints match the Phoenix pan paints identically. So if you were trying to decide whether you want to get a pan paint set or the tube set, I think it just matters on what you prefer. I don't think one is a better quality than the other. Price-wise, I paid $13.99 for a set of 24 tubes. When I got the pan paints are going for, the set of 48 I think is about 40 bucks. I think I paid around 30 or even 20 something for them because I got them on Amazon Prime Day or something last year. But for the price, yes, I think they're a fair value for the price. They seem to be identical to the Cotman paints by Winsor & Newton in feel, in color. I actually compared some Royal and Langnickel. They did not, they weren't the same. They were a little more Royal Langnickel or a little chalkier. The colors were different. They're not bad for the price that they are. They're a much cheaper paint though. So, and they don't dry down as well as this. So these are dried down. I just rewet them today to do a couple paintings from dry. There's no cracking, but I think they shrunk up a little bit maybe, but they've got plenty of binder in them, but not so much that they're really shiny. You know, like sometimes paints, if you put them on too thick, they'll get really glossy looking, like the Gansai Tambi paints. The only shine that I saw was where if I had a really thick area on a glaze, like at the top here where I had a lot of my brush and it kind of puddled there. And on the Verdi Blue, there was a lot of binder there if you want to use it in mass tone. That's a disappointing color. I was excited because it used PB28, which is cobalt blue, but I was very disappointed once I started working with it. You really had to dig to get that color up, and if you did get enough color for the color payout, you got a glossy mess. The only thing I think this would be good for is if you have if you end up being really heavy-handed in your skies and you're trying to do like a misty, foggy seascape sky. I dare you, say that a few times before you judge. Seascape sky. It's hard. I don't know why it's so hard to say that. And I'm a professional. That's debatable, right, guys? That has a lot of, that's got a lot of gloss to it. It probably needed the extra binder for the extra chalk that it had in there to extend that PB28. And you can really see that. And you can also see the haze very clearly. At least I can in real life. I don't know if you can on camera, but there's a lot of haze there. So that color's disappointing. I wish they didn't include that. I wish they didn't include that cerulean blue hue because it's just that pigment with extenders in it. So if a paint uses PW4, which is a precipitated chalk, if they use that as an additive or an extender in their paint, they don't need to disclose that pigment on the bottle, on the tube. So you may say, oh, PB28, and that's exciting because that's all it says it has. It looks like a single pigment color, but it has that filler in it that they don't have to disclose. So so that was a little disappointing. I'm disappointed that they put two very similar greens. I wish if they're going to do a PG36 and a PG7, why would they add PY175? We already have that. I'd rather have the PG7 on its own because then you could take PG7, also known as Viridian Hue, which is a strong, cool green. It's a very blue leaning green, but you mix that with like cadmium orange or cadmium yellow and you get the most gorgeous sap green tone. I did struggle mixing a nice green that I liked that was really earthy here, but you know what? I'm actually going to try another mix because I'm thinking that if I took the intense blue, phthalo blue here, I'm calling it intense blue because that's the Winsor & Newton name, and it just kind of old habits die hard. I'm going to try mixing that with yellow ochre, and I'm going to see if I get a decent color because I'm just really disappointed that they didn't use just a straight, like they could have put Viridian Hue. That is a color they offer. They could use Viridian Hue. They could have just nixed that blue and that blue. They could have they could have picked stronger colors from the Phoenix range for this set. But for what I paid, I'm really not that not that upset about it. I don't like that white, but some people do like to use a mixing white to keep the viscosity in their paints for pastels. So I mean, it's there for the people that want it. The Payne's gray is beautiful. The lamp black would be very good for inking or for you know, line work if you like to do kind of cartoony works, because it's so opaque. It is a really nice opaque, slightly cool leaning black. Not cool enough to mix a green with. Sometimes with lamp black you can add yellow and get a nice green. Didn't find that to be the case, but it's definitely a nice neutral to cool. Actually, it's probably more neutral than cool even. Dark black that would be good for outlining. So I'm going to take that with some yellow ochre and just see. It might be a little muddy because of the opacity of yellow ochre. You can see right there, but I'm hoping I can get a nice earthy green with that. It's a little hazy, and I'm not quite sure why I'm having such a hard time making a really nice earthy green. I think it's just, well, I mean, the yellows don't seem that transparent, but maybe they're just extended a little too much and a little too weak for it. So I'm using the most cool, vibrant blue that I have. Maybe let's try add a little bit of the warm yellow to that. That's a little bit better. That's a little bit more like a sap. Not quite. Let's try one more thing. I'm gonna do the phthalo blue. I'm gonna do some Indian red. I don't need too much of that. And then let's try a lemon yellow. And I'm pretty good at color mixing. I'm kind of a little bit stymied on why I can't get a good sap green here, unless it's just a situation of the fillers. Now, Phoenix makes a pretty sap green, and they make a pretty olive green. Their sap green is really nice. Let me show you from the Phoenix swatch that I have right here. Look, they make an olive green and a sap green. Either of those would be better than, like, I don't like that green either. You know, either of those greens would have been better than that, I think. Because I mean, this is going to be frustrating if someone who's been painting for a long time, am struggling here. That might work. Hold on, let's see. That's real dark, but let's get a little bit more of that cadmium orange in there. That's a nice olive, actually. Let's do a little, let's try this medium yellow. And a little bit more of the blue, intense blue. I mean, that's probably, oh, that's more of a hooker's green, I would say, but I still think it's prettier than the hooker's green dark they have there, but still not quite what I want. Let's try one more thing. Let's try this emerald with the orange, and let's see if that, like, you can kind of see, it's just kind of a little bit soapy, which is something I see with the Cotman paints a lot. Oh, that's a little bit better. Okay. Alright, if you use emerald and orange, that will give you a pretty good sap green. I think that's probably a nicer green. Let's get the glare off of it. And let's also try phthalo green, but phthalo green seems a little weaker. We'll try that in orange and see what we get. Because I want somebody, if you get this paint, I want to make sure you can mix a sap green, because, and you know what? Honestly, I think I would go ahead and that one's alright. I think emerald and cadmium orange is your good mix for sap green. I think I would just go ahead and make a pan of that. If you've got this set, you've got plenty of this green. Don't worry about using it up. You got that. If you use this up, take that, mix it with some of that in a pan. Get the color you want, just kind of a little bit at a time till you get the color you want in your palette, and just make your own sap green, because I think it could be a chore to be mixing that up. That is a pretty, I did it though. That's pretty. That's a nice sap green. I should have just looked at the pigment information. Hold on, let's see what the pigment information says on this sap green. Let's see, it's PY 138. Is that there? No, never mind. It's not one of the colors that we have anyway. But hey, I think that's a pretty color. I think that works a lot better. That would be my only drawback. Recommending this for a beginner would be potential muddy mixes, because of some of these weaker colors that have too much white in them. So if you were to buy this paint for yourself or for your child who's getting started in watercolor, I would say pull certain tubes. Pull out the lemon yellow, the cad yellow hue, the cad red hue, the alizarin crimson, the ultramarine blue, the phthalo blue, the yellow ochre, and the burnt umber. And I would put them in a little palette, and I think I would start them with that and have them do all their mixes from that. And after they're really comfortable, or you're really comfortable and you've been using it for a bit and you're ready to add more colors, then, you know, go in and add colors as you want. Like if you like to do a lot of florals, the rose and the violet are going to be really nice to have. If you like to do a lot of animals, you're going to enjoy having the burnt sienna. But I think I would limit it down to the strongest colors in this range, so that you don't hinder yourself. Because that's the thing. That's, I think, where Cotman gets his bad rap. When I was teaching with Cotman paints, I would buy the split primary tubes. At the time I was doing alizarin crimson, cad red hue, like in the large 21 ml tubes. And they did both cadmium and cad red hue. But I got the hue because it was cheaper, and I was teaching senior citizens. I figured better safe than sorry, and as well as children. So, and I would get ultramarine blue and Prussian blue, but you could do Prussian or phthalo. It's completely up to you. I think phthalo is a little cleaner. I'd recommend that one nowadays. Then I would do cad yellow hue, and I would do lemon yellow, and then burnt sienna. I think I did burnt sienna, but I think out of those two, I'd go with burnt umber, yellow ochre, and I would honestly get a tube of sap green, but you could mix your emerald and your cad orange and make a little pot of sap green for yourself or for your child if they're learning how to paint, and just keep it simple, because I think that there's just a few tubes in here that will hinder you if you are beginning, and can honestly make you think that the range of paints are worse, that the paints are worse than they are because of those certain colors. The streaky, transparent Chinese white, the only thing I think that's good for is increasing viscosity in colors that you want to be pastel, reduce flow, usually not things that you want to do. Sometimes you want to do them, but oftentimes they're not things you want to do. So I would just keep that in the tube, put it aside till when you actually need it. It rewet okay, but I would just keep it in the tube and only put out it if you need it. And it's not going to be as opaque as gouache. But if you stuck to the basics, I think you would enjoy the set. I'm not unhappy that I bought it. I think that because I still teach with Cotman paints when I do my library classes, I can fill up the palettes with these. I don't see any difference between the Phoenix watercolor tubes and Cotman watercolor tubes, as we mentioned earlier when we were comparing. And I think for the money, it's it's a good deal. Even if you were to buy this and only use the colors that I recommended, and then buy a few open stock tubes of the Marie's Masters, because I don't know if you can get the Phoenix open stock anywhere in this country. Probably they have it like in Asia, because they're made in China. They seem like a company that would do their own open stock, but I don't know, maybe not. But Marie's Masters go on sale for like $2.50 at Jerry's Artorama. You can grab a few tubes to try it out, or to add to what you got in the set, because I mean, you really can't beat $13. These were cheaper after I bought them. They went down to 13. So if you can get them at a deal, why not? When I got the first set of Phoenix paints, I was very disappointed, and I thought, what a waste of money. And it's down to the fact of what they included in their set. They did not include the most useful colors. Some were good, but just those, having only a set of 12 and having a few that weren't that great, they weren't good for mixing, they were too weak or too dull, it just kind of soured me until I tried the set of 48, and I realized, the paints are fine, it's just there's a few duds in the mix. So let's look at the artwork here. I did this, this painting here because I just wanted to play with layers. So I did a wet into wet background and I did some wet into wet layers, and then I let it dry and I did some just kind of crisp dry layers on top just to kind of play with some ripply waves. And then I did these poppies playing with my dagger brush, and I did film these. I didn't narrate them, but if you guys are interested, let me know and I could edit them and put them up, or maybe I already have, I don't know. I work a few weeks in advance, so by the time this video comes out I might even have tutorials for these up. But I was just kind of playing around to see how they blended, how they flowed. Blending was really good. This isn't a really high flow paint because of the amount of fillers in them. It's not like, it's student grade basically. I know it's called artist, but it's more of what I would consider, it's Cotman level, which is like a student grade, not the top of the line. I do see a little bit of shine on that crimson where it's kind of thick. So, you know, if you get that and that bothers you, you can spray it with a little fixative. But I found working with these to be quite easy. And I don't really have any qualms about them. Just know what you're getting, and I don't think you'll be disappointed. Don't expect to be getting professional quality paints when you buy this set for $13. I wouldn't spend $30 or $40 on it personally, but you know, you can, you know what you want, you know what you like. So, but if you already have Cotman, I wouldn't bother. You already have these, unless you're trying to restock because you already have Cotman. I think that's all I did for paintings with those. I didn't really need to do much to be able to tell what they were, and just like double check that they were what they were. But you know, I'm not unhappy with what I paid. Just, you know, keeping those caveats in mind, and go forth and then get yourself some paint if you think it would be useful to you. But yeah, they dried down really nice, a little bit glossy. They didn't skimp on the binder, which a lot of budget paints do. So yeah, I kind of wish they wouldn't call it artist. Now I also want to say there is a paint out there, student grade, the Phoenix tubes that are like, they're in a 24 set. You can find them at Ocean State Job Lot for $5, or they're on Amazon, I think for around $10. And they do not look like these tubes. You want to make sure if you're going to buy these, you get the ones that look like this, because their other set of tube paints are really streaky and weak and full of fillers and awful. So just avoid, I would definitely recommend avoiding those, especially if the price of these is this low. So yeah, I'll show you this mixing chart here. I didn't do it with these paints, but I did it with a Premier by Nicole, and a lot of these colors are similar. But look at this, see this Verdian color? This is what I was telling you about. That is a PG7. That would be like the Cotman Verdian, and you get so much brighter mixes with those. Dioxazine purple. I mean, just to give you an idea of what those colors can do when you mix them up and you make a mixing chart of what you have. Yeah, they're not bad. They're, you know, a solid, they're a high quality budget paint. They're a student grade paint. They're fine. They're nothing to write home about. They're not gonna, like, you know, probably kick your art up to the next level, but they are a solid contender. They're, you know, they're totally worth $13. They're, you know, probably worth, you know, double that. So I hope you found that helpful. I always enjoy kind of sleuthing around and finding what paints act like other paints. And I know this review was really long. I hope you enjoyed it. But I'll cut it short because I really don't have anything else to say. So thank you so much for watching. And until next time, happy crafting. Bye.